then that's where the fire happened in that building. And then people are gonna gather around.
Right.
Have fun. Yeah, like dancing and singing. Just events in general, and that's a hotel. Very famous hotel. So Portuguese is not just the capital, it's also the harbor, the one and only.
The port.
On the island. Port Louis. It's named after Louis from France, the French, the king.
The fun and interesting part about travel is getting to know the history, culture, and people of that country. Most people outside of Mauritius don't learn their history, meaning Mauritian history, because it doesn't relate to the history of the country you're from. And it makes sense because U.S. history has nothing to do with Mauritian history. Therefore, anything I would want to know about this country, I would have to do what you call engage in independent study based on my own curiosity about this country, or travel, which hopefully expands your mind and interests.
So before, this used to be super dirty. There's people would throw their crap in there.
And now?
But they cleaned it up, and now there's strict laws. So it goes all around there, and then
I've never noticed this.
Yeah, it's like a bay. You know?
Oh, how did I not notice this? Maybe I got lost. Because McDonald's is
There.
there.
Yeah.
I don't think I came inside.
Yeah, you
I
just
don't
stayed
think
in
I
the
came.
mall.
Yeah.
So it goes all around there, and then there you can actually find where the cannons were at the time to defend whatever.
The island.
Yeah. So that's where the French come, and then this is where they record the ground.
So after the French came, then the British was like, uh-oh, let's come here and take over now.
Yeah.
Basically, they ran them back home.
Yeah. So when the French came, they took over the island, gave it a French name, started an economy with like spices and stuff. And it was like, because why is Mauritius so coveted? Is because it is right smack.
Private property.
You can see from very far away when it's so this is where it was different from. And then there's something called the citadel up on the mountain. There also it's a proper fort with like the big walls and the cannons and the trenches and proper fort, you know. And they defended the island from there as well. It's like high up, so they could see farther away.
And who's this guy?
This is the
Two guys.
So one of them is the front of the nation, and then the other one is somebody. This is the back of the market. And then this is the old post office where we did it. But it's like a landmark.
So let's get into it. Slavery or indenture, and why Indian immigration stopped on this African island. First of all, let's start off with what some may be confused of, and that's the word indenture, which means voluntary arrangement. And then you have slavery, which means the opposite of involuntary, often being lifelong ownership of an individual or people. So now, since we got that out the way, what you're about to see is a museum that we visited that I learned some very interesting facts about this country, and one of them being that it was successfully colonized by the Dutch, French, and last, the British. And the reason it says successfully colonized is because before these three group of Europeans, actually the Portuguese was here, but they never got a chance to actually colonize this island as the Dutch did. So that was very interesting. And you got to think around this time, the scramble for Africa was at full speed. So you had European countries at this time. They were ending their fights amongst each other over African countries. So by the time the British came to this island, they already had fought over South Africa, which were the Boers, which another word for the Dutch, and they actually won. So by the time they came to Mauritius, it was coming to an end of the fighting amongst European countries. And by around 1885, all European leaders met at the infamous Berlin Conference to divide Africa and to draw borders that really exist to this day.
Yeah, and there you can see they restored the original infrastructure of the rock work. So usually you can visit Mount. They used to make us come here on field trips.
So we're getting near something that's very interesting. I'm going to read it right now. What it says, and it says more than 3,000 indentured laborers were recruited from Singapore, Penang, and Macau arrived in Mauritius during the whole period of indenture. And all of these places are majority in Southeast Asia. Penang is in Malaysia, and of course Singapore is the country and city. Is very small, one of my favorite Asian countries to visit. That's in Southeast Asia. And then you have right here Macau. Macau is actually in China, and the word Macau, the pronunciation, even the spelling, is a Portuguese word. So the Portuguese around this colonial time had a colony in China, Macau, in which people at that time spoke Portuguese and their Chinese language. So it's very interesting. So the majority of the Indians, of course, was brought by the British, not the French. The French remained to get their slaves from mainland of Africa, while the British did the opposite. They just kept bringing Indians from the countries they had colonized before, which were Singapore, Malaysia, and also the British was in China, along with, you cannot forget, India. So that's what the British kept doing, not only in Mauritius, but other countries that they colonized, except one country, which was the U.S. But they did the same thing that they did in Mauritius and Guyana, South Africa, and other countries that they colonized. So now I'm going to go on to the next fact that I read was around 10% of the total number of indentured laborers who came to Mauritius were from the Bombay Presidency in India.
Yeah.
The interesting part about this is when you go back in history, you'll see that in colonial Bombay, slavery was practiced both amongst Indians and the British administration. So that makes you think, was it slavery or was it indenture? Because the two meanings are totally different. And from reading this, the indenture immigration from India was suspended due to the conditions being similar to slavery. So you put everything in perspective and you think about it. During this colonial period, the British somehow connived and tricked the Indians in thinking that they would bring their people across the world to different countries as indentured servants, but once arrived, they were treated as slaves. And that's the reason why it had to end of the immigration of Indians to Mauritius. And as you see, this is all not my personal opinions. These are things we're reading together. If you get the opportunity to travel to Mauritius and you're into history like myself, I will recommend you come and visit the World Heritage Site. And this is near the waterfront in Port Louis, Mauritius. So come and check it out. It's very interesting, and also you get to read and see things up close and personal. And you'll find out that the information they provide is very accurate. And on top of that, it will give you ideas of things to do your own personal research on, to learn more and gain more information on a particular subject or something in particular you had read that you just want to know more about. If you made it this far in the video, we have came to or towards the end of this video. That means that hopefully you like history and also you like traveling, of course. But until next time,